You're listening to First Paso. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso. Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and today I have a very special guest. First off, let's talk about how I'm leveling up over here, because this is my first in-person guest. Y'all know I've been doing guests for a long periodically time, and I have not had one in my actual presence. So this is a big deal to me, number one. But number two, it's super special to me because it's my best friend in the whole world. We're practically twins. Except she's Biggie and I'm Smalls. So there's that. But
wow.
I mean, it's true. So she's my best friend in the whole world. We've been best friends for probably not as long as you would think. You would say someone's your best friend, but she has been such an integral part of my life just in the last 10 months, that I really wanted you guys to meet her. And I've been talking about her on my social media. I've been talking about her on the pod already. And I've just been teasing her into my life. And here she is. So this will probably just be her first time here. It will definitely not be her last. Because yes, she hates that I said that. Let me introduce all of you to my best friend, Jaunell Silvera. Hey girl, how you doing?
Hey.
Hey.
I'm doing good.
Yay. I'm so glad that you're on my show right now because I've been bugging you about this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I find your story so encouraging. It's encouraging to me every day, just from the fact that I get a front row seat at your life from where I met you to now.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing you share your story that led up to when we met, it's so profound to me. And I've been so eager to have you share it with other people because it's that big of a deal, whether you realize that or not. I'm
going to go with not.
See, because I know.
I'm going to go with not.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's not just your story, but your life it's made such an impact on me that I don't know. It was essential that I introduced to the world why my life has been so flipped upside down this year for all the best reasons in the world. So whether you realize it or not, I want you to know that that's how big of an impact your story is and makes on people.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted you to have a safe place to share that. And I hope that my show is that place for you. So go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
And then I'll ask you a couple of questions.
A little bit about myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a question I don't even know how to answer. And I'm gonna do my best, right? So I'm going to say that I'm in process of even finding language of how to describe myself, because for so long I've defined myself, one, I've noticed, based on where I'm from. My family is from Jamaica. I was born and raised in the country of Jamaica. And for a long time, that was part of how I saw myself as a person, as that's a definer of who I am.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's one thing I would say. Another way I used to define myself was based on what I do. So in terms of work, working in finance, specifically to do with data analysis, just ways I would tell, like, signal to people what I do to feel a certain way about myself. Another way I've defined myself, I would honestly say that's it. Those are the two major things. And I'm in an interesting place right now where my story is being written in a new way, where those things that I've just described, I don't associate myself with them anymore. And not in a bad way, but just seeing that there's more that wants to emerge from who I am. When I say I'm Jamaican, it doesn't even feel honest anymore. And recently when I was praying, one thing y'all should know right now, like, I'm practicing prayer. So for me, that's like one of the things I'm working on. So I'll share something I was praying about lately, which is like for our country. And
that's the United States of America.
The United States.
I know some of y'all don't live here. Bless you. Pray for us.
Yeah.
Like she's praying for us.
Yeah. The United States. And first of all, it's new for me to even be praying for the United States. And I noticed one of the mornings when I was praying as if I was over here and the United States was over here, as if I don't live here. And I felt separate from the we that we were praying for. And I noticed that. And I felt weird about it, where I even prayed and said, Lord, like, I don't know what that is, what I'm praying. Holy Spirit, help me to pray. But I noticed that morning, and I believe it was like this morning when I was praying, I said we from a place where I included myself. And I realized this was the first time I really ever considered being part of the collective we in the United States, where I see myself as part of, this is my country, this is my home. So where am I going with that?
You were explaining like how you're identifying yourself, like what's emerging.
Yeah, so I noticed certain things they just don't feel like they fit me anymore. And there are other things that's begging to be included, emerge into like who I am right now.
Yeah.
So I would say right now I am seeking. I am pursuing Jesus. That is huge for me right now.
Yeah.
And in terms of something I've noticed about myself that is actually true and core to myself is I'm a seeker. I've always been curious, even through being a child growing up. I'm always thinking. I want to try things, learn things.
Yeah.
So I would say one way to describe myself is I'm a seeker. So currently where I'm at, I'm seeking. I am open to all there is that's happening right now where I'm at, the humanness of that. So I would say in spirit, right? That's where I'm at, not necessarily who I am, so to speak.
Yeah.
But being open to what's happening right now, taking it all in fully. I think that's part of like my being right now and my doing that comes out of that. And yeah, so a little bit about me. Yeah.
See, this is why I love you so much, because the fact that you would have such a deep response of
Okay. Okay. One more thing about me.
Okay.
I'm deep, y'all.
She's pretty. Yeah.
And
pretty deep.
It's something I'm learning. I've learned about myself now that I'm older. I have a particular wisdom to me. I believe God has granted me that. And even through my life, even in maturity, from a young age, looking back, I can tell that he's given me wisdom. So there's a certain depth to how I ask questions and answer questions, which honestly, even for me, sometimes it'd be too deep. I'd be getting lost in my own ocean. So
girl,
I'm a deep thinker. I am a deep feeler.
Girl, just keep talking.
I feel all my emotions and all the things, and I'm grateful in current moment that I'm better in feeling some of those emotions and things. So as we're talking, you just triggered something for me of things that I've noticed that are timeless about me. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I expect nothing less from you to even say what you said about yourself. It's very honest. That, you know, you're in process, you know, and I love that you've been so open to what that is in the moment, what that could possibly mean in another moment. And I think that's what this whole season is about. Just like, how do we navigate this middle of whatever, whatever the middle is that we're going through? What does that look like? How do we do that? But I would love for you to share some backstory that has led you into this transition period, and then to share what the transition has been like in a day-to-day. Because I think a lot of people, they're like, okay, well, what are all the steps? And they don't understand that sometimes the steps are so messy and confusing sometimes, or just there's a lack of understanding of what's going on. Maybe not confusing, but just like, I'm not sure. That we need to hear more of that, especially today where people are so focused on wanting to know step 1, step 2, step 3, and they want it as clear as possible, like a recipe, right? Like, how do I do this life by the steps?
Right.
I need all your steps with all of her steps and his steps, and then I'm going to find all the steps to fit my life, and I'm going to just do all of them, and hopefully I get the result you got.
Yeah.
And life is really not like that at all.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I think it's also frustrating because people aren't as honest about that middle, how uncomfortable and weird it can be, and even what leads you into, you know, we have little transition periods, but like major ones.
Right.
Like no one really wants to talk about that.
Right.
Even on socials, right? Like they post these highlight reels and you just be like, oh, they got, you know, they got the house. Oh, they did the thing. Oh, and they're like, because they're not telling you all middle things that were going through their head, and all that stuff. So, do you mind unpacking? Would you be opposed to unpacking the backstory that has brought you into the transition that you're experiencing?
Yeah.
Because I think that's very key to why you're even in this open season of your life.
Sure. Yeah, backstory. That's a good question.
You can start wherever you want to start.
Yeah.
Wherever you feel comfortable starting.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I'm comfortable, girl.
Okay, girl. I know this couch is comfortable.
Yeah, we on this couch, so it's helping with my other comforts.
Oh, praise God.
So, I think where I want to start is 2020. May 2020, I got laid off from a job that it was my first 6-figure job. I was in Colorado. I moved from Florida, which I lived pretty much most of my life since I've been here in the United States. So this was literally a major transition for me to come from a place that I was so comfortable with. I known. So middle school, high school, college, after college, living life and being very entrenched in that place, right? And stepping outside of that was huge for me because it was the first time I was on my own.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was living on my, like had my independence, so to speak, like after college while I was in Florida. But this was like for real, like risk. Like, I got to figure out how to get my own apartment when I used to share with roommates before. I didn't buy a car. I leased a car for the first time. It's just like a lot of firsts that I did on my own. Some very major adulting things.
Girl.
And making decisions and things. So when I got laid off, this was another transition point because the company I was at, it was a startup going 100 miles an hour. When we started, everything was like peak hype. And if any of you know anything about a startup, it's all about what you're valued, continuing to raise money so you can build what you need to build, and hopefully it hits and you can take off, because that money you're getting, it's like you're running against time.
Right.
And by the time COVID hit, in some ways they were running out of time. And that wasn't a good time if you're running out of time.
Right.
When you're racing against the clock. So, some tough decisions had to be made. A lot of people were laid off. And I was part of like the second or third wave. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I still had time on my lease. I ended up breaking my lease. They let me break it. And praise God, they didn't charge me for the rest of the months. They were like, it's cool, you can go.
Wow.
So I was just pondering the question of, do I stay here in Colorado? And at the time, my partner then, she was living here in California. And we had the conversation. It's something that maybe would have happened later. But I was like, can I come now? And she was like, sure. And I packed my car and I drove over. What played into that decision was I didn't see myself in Colorado. I was only living there like a year and a half. And I mean, it's a nice place, but I didn't see myself like putting roots down there, right? And after the very tumultuous ride that I had at the company in terms of like the pace that I was going, I think I was ready for another change of scenery to see what else I could do. And I didn't see that happen in Colorado. So I came to California. Came here peak pandemic. Like, pandemic literally just started. And
hold on.
Yeah.
Wait, that means you showed up to LA when there were no cars on the road.
I mean, there was.
But not like how we know.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
No. The 405 was
as clear as day.
Yeah. It was apocalyptic. It was giving apocalyptic.
I'm just trying to. Okay, I hadn't even processed that. That seems like really trivial to me, but such a big move to a place that you assume would not assume, but you know it. But people know LA to be this like big and hustle bustle place, and to go from a tumultuous experience in Colorado, leaving that, and then you come and it's kind of eerie.
Why?
Well, it's only eerie because it's not the LA that you would expect to move to.
Sure.
Like to move to an LA that's quiet.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people were actually moving during the pandemic too, but
I think there was a lot of moving happening. Because when you think about it,
I guess that's true. Yeah. Because people were like losing jobs and things were just like not working out in certain places. They had to
shift around.
Move. I don't know. I can't imagine leaving somewhere like Colorado. I'm sorry, I'm ignorant about Colorado, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But like when I think about Colorado, I'm thinking that's a quiet place already, naturally.
Quiet. Yeah, it's quiet.
And going to a place that I would naturally expect to be like up and going and like, okay, I'm like gonna be thinking, I'm gonna get creative, I'm gonna do this stuff, and you don't have any of that.
Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about none of that, honestly.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. And where I ended up moving to was in the Valley.
Yeah.
So I moved from quiet to quiet.
Oh, okay. Right? And the Valley is naturally quiet.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So I actually really liked living out there. I ended up taking about like 6 months off. Because I was like, I need a break.
Ooh.
I wasn't planning for it to be 6 months, but all I knew at the time was like, I need a break.
Yeah.
I got a severance, had savings. Mm-hmm. I worked out a deal with my partner at the time. She agreed to cover the rent. So I didn't really have like a pressure to, I gotta get a job right now.
Yeah.
Because especially with, honestly, with anybody's profession at that time, it was so precarious. For you to be trying to find a job in the middle of a pandemic, unless you're a healthcare professional, that would have been so challenging. Because companies are like, we don't know if we finna be open.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't worried about that. But I was like, you know, things like floating around in my head of like life, things are happening, you know, just like working out what is going on right now and all the things that are up in the air. And of course I got like my bills to take care of, just different things where I'm just like figuring it out basically. So it was a concern, like a mild concern, because of, you know, having the finances and then having a partner that's, thank God, you know, flexible with where I was at the time, which I greatly appreciated because I really did need that time. That was the first time in my life I did not work. Like, for real, like, stop working. Like, where it was just like complete halt. I started working when I was 14. If y'all know, a grocery store named Publix is very popular. Georgia, Florida. I used to work at a supermarket named Publix. Bagger. Actually, my first job was as a busser, working on the beach at a restaurant, and then I started working at Publix. But pretty much started at 14. So I love to work, and given my background as a Jamaicans like to work. We're hardworking people. That combined with my personality, I work and I enjoy work. So I've done so many different jobs, from the low paid. I've worked at McDonald's, you know, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked at many different jobs to, you know, professionally, all those things. So this was the first time I didn't work. It was just like a complete screeching halt. And that was weird for me because even in my personality as well, I'm active. I like to do. I'm a doer. And to not be moving and doing and releasing my energy, and I operate at a very high intensity mentally, physically. So to come to a screeching halt for me was very uncomfortable. Yeah. Very uncomfortable. And I honestly spent a lot of that time meditating. I would like wake up in the morning, make some breakfast, read. I was reading stuff from when I was in my what do you call these things nowadays? Y'all, I was in the woo woo. That's what I'm trying to.
The woo woo.
The woo woo.
What's the woo woo?
Oprah. I think she was the one that came up with this term. So you know when you into like the new age. So I was searching, y'all, because this discomfort just had me set in such a way where it was just like an unpacking of myself
During that 6 months?
Yeah, without even realizing that's what I was going to go into, because like I said, I didn't plan to do 6 months.
Right.
But what I was going off at the time was, after leaving that company in Colorado, some part of the time when I was there, I got very sick. Just because of like all the stress of like work and just hitting it to the limit. So at the end of that first year when I worked there, the pace I was going, it's like breakneck pace with what I was tasked with, the team I was leading. So I got sick and I ended up having to do a surgery to extract like a growth that developed in my stomach to like the size of a cantaloupe. And that shook me.
Jesus.
That I could push myself in such a way that it would put my health in jeopardy.
Wow.
And part of like perfectionism, the striving, some of those things that I used to do, it put me in that place. So that affected me, that experience, and I came out of it just with my mind saying to myself like, yo, I can't do that ever again. Like there's nothing, no one worth it, no company, right, to push myself to such a limit, to damage myself.
Yeah.
So I made that decision coming out of that, like with the recovery and everything. So that was not too far ago from 2020. Honestly, it was actually the top of 2020 when I was recovering from the surgery that I did in December 2019. And it came like quick. It came quick. And thankfully at the time they were able to get me in scheduled and everything got done very quickly because it was that urgent. So they got the mess out. So I spent December 2019 recovering into January. And I'm in 2020, right? I'm still working. I'm still, so in my mind, I'm still processing that. I'm still processing the surgery. I'm at the company. I got things to do. We still got money to raise. I got stuff to build. And I'm processing that. So when May came, it's maybe 5 months, like 4 or 5 months since I'm recovering.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is what I'm bringing into that space of not knowing really like some of the things that were buried in me that I needed to look at, that needs to come up and come out, because I've been running at such a pace pretty much since I came here to the United States.
Yeah.
So I started to unpack. And at the time I was doing a lot of journaling. And as I'm unpacking the discomforts of just having time and the thoughts that are coming of just being so uncomfortable that I have nothing to do, I remember one day I asked myself, so who am I without the job? Who am I without the money?
Jeez.
Does that mean I'm nothing? And I was sitting on a couch or so I was sitting somewhere. I remember sitting down when I was like writing this, and I sat there for a minute and I could just feel the weight of the question, and I had no answer for it. And I felt so awful about myself. I felt so worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a major question that's, I think, been guiding my decision making since then. Who am I without the money? Who am I? How have I been valuing myself? So I started searching, and I was reading some books at the time just to help me to deal with the discomfort of sitting in that question.
Yeah.
Because all I got on my hand is time. And at that time as well, I had insomnia for like literally those first 4 to 6 months since I living in California. Don't know why. Tried everything I could, went to doctor, just nothing. So on top of that, I wasn't sleeping. So my mind was just running all the time. I had a lot of time to think. So I would spend a lot of my days just wearily kind of between sleep and awake, make breakfast, clean if I need to clean, wash dishes and stuff. And I would go sit outside and I would just meditate for like 30 minutes, an hour. And I would do some exercises from that book. And that's what I would do for like months. So I would say that is like a major kickoff point. I just turned 36 last Saturday. So what is it, 2024? So I was 32 then. And coming out of that, I didn't want to, let me back up. As the time went on of allowing myself to rest, allowing myself to unpack, allowing myself even honestly in some ways to heal, continue healing, right? I didn't want to go back to the real world, so to speak. And when I came into 2021, things were, still pandemic, but things are starting to shift where like maybe I need to start finding a job. So my partner was like, "Hey, you need to
pay this rent.
It would be great if you
help out.
Love you, but it's been too long,
right?"
And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm gonna find a job."
Yeah.
So I ended up finding a job about a year later from the time I took a break. So I took all in total a year off. And sustained through the entire thing. And also shout out to the government for those checks.
Listen.
Because those COVID checks are hitting. Between my savings and unemployment,
girl,
them COVID checks are hitting. I was like, I think I'm good.
Right.
I think I can ride this thing out for a little minute.
A little bit.
But I didn't want to go back to the real world. But I know I had to. Yeah. And I was honestly like really dreading it. So coming now into another transition of like coming out of a phase of taking a break and then ramping back up into it. What I took out of that period was I realized that the way I was living previously and how I defined myself, the totality of how I defined myself was work.
Yeah.
That was my sense of worth. So even I noticed from reflection, even in the ways I was going about how I approach work, myself was so wrapped up into it that I could not separate me and the work. So I worked at a very high level, very good at what I do because I'm passionate. I'm particular. I put a certain care into what I do, but myself, my entire self was in what I was doing. So if someone gave me a critique about something, it was like I thought it was about me.
Right.
Not about what I was doing.
Right.
My entire self
Wow.
was so wrapped up in what I was doing
Wow.
that I realized that's what I was doing. And that's how I was going about feeling worthy.
Wow.
And that puts a lot of pressure on a job. It could be a relationship, right? It puts a lot of pressure on that thing for it to be your everything.
Yeah.
So I noticed that's what I was doing with work. And I'm like, that's wrong. That's the wrong way to go about it. Coming out of that period, the lesson I learned was I was putting my entire self into that job. And I realized I was wrong. Why is it wrong? Because it puts a tremendous pressure on that one thing to meet your needs.
Yeah.
So I remember at another company I worked, things weren't transitioning in the way that I needed it to transition. I wanted to do certain things. I had ideas of certain things I wanted to bring into the company that I know could be helpful. But for some reason, it wasn't moving the way that I wanted it to. And I ended up leaving that company. And I learned partly it's because I took things personal. I didn't get what I wanted. And I went somewhere else that I can make more money. I can level up my skills and my talents, right? But really, I didn't do some of the other work that I would need to do in order for certain things to happen. Now, I want us to hold that in mind, that this is life, right? Life is nuanced in that way.
Yeah.
Even when we did all the things right, it can go however it want to go, right?
True.
The reason why I know it's that is because I was so caught up in how I was feeling about the situation that in hindsight, I could see that there was still work to be done in terms of being developed as a professional, in terms of being developed as a leader, right? I realized I took that personal, right? So ended up moving on, went to another place, learned more things, whatever. My self-worth was caught up to where I miss things because I'm so focused on the direness to uphold how I need to feel about myself.
Wow.
So a critique is an offense.
Dog.
I took things personally. And yes, I'm passionate, and that was part of the challenge in terms of discernment for me, because I'm so passionate. I think it's just me being passionate about what I do. No, I was taking offense. So even though I was successful through my career, I could have been even more successful if I had a healthy sense of self. Because part of my philosophy of how I was working, and now having recovered from overworking, now have since divorced myself from that culture of, you kill yourself for a company. No boundaries. Because I had something to prove. I was trying to prove myself. And I realized that's what I was doing. And my takeaway from that, I'm like, yo, that's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm too intertwined into this.
Yeah.
That it's not right, because it's going to affect how I make decisions. It's going to affect what I create.
Right.
Because I'm operating from a place where I need to feel a certain way.
Wow.
So I need to achieve in a certain way. So I would manufacture my successes in such a way so I can feel a certain way.
Yeah.
So that's the lesson I took out of that. And I was like, yo, that's wrong. I can't do that. Because I'm off. It's off doing that. I'm not on the right path doing that. So I took that with me, that lesson with me. I'm going back into the workforce now. I started working at another startup. And even though I got the revelation, I'm still working out and living that out of not being wrapped up in a thing.
Yeah.
Right? I get this job. Again, busy. That's what startups are. I love a challenge. That's also intrinsic to who I am. I love a challenge. I love hard things. So I like to be in an arena like that as well, where stakes are high. I like that. And at the same time as well, I had no business taking that job. I continued to make my six figures, and I made even more than what I was making previously. Good amount more. I was making very good money. I'm also strategic. I think when I plan and I think things, I can be like, I need to do this, do that. When I get this, I get that. So I've been playing that game for a long time.
Yeah.
So I know what titles to get. I know what things to learn. So I can put and I can get what I want. So I was still playing the game, right?
Yeah.
I was still manufacturing things to boost myself and feel a certain way.
Yeah.
So part of that is the money.
Right.
So I figured out a way to get what I wanted, and I realized I was in over my head. And towards the end of it, I got so stressed that I was gonna be found out as a fraud. because I purported to do certain things I didn't have the maturity for yet. Yes, I believe I could pull it off, but I was in over my head.
And you realized that in that moment?
No, I picked it up as I got deeper and I got a full understanding of what was actually needed. And then now I'm in it, and it's like trying to navigate and figure it out.
Wow.
And yes, I was able to deliver, but I really wasn't able to deliver.
Yeah.
So I got laid off from that job.
This is the second time
in, I would say 2020, 2021. So like second time in like a year. So I was at that company for almost a year. So I came into 2022. Okay. So second time in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm laid off again. Wonderful. Only
the best.
only at this point now, it's like things are opening back up. So it's like I can find a job,
right,
type thing.
Right.
But truly, like when I came to the end of this one, I was just like, oh, I don't know.
What do you mean? I don't know. I don't know what.
I was like, I don't know if this is it. Like the path I'm going.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like I love numbers. And I like what I do. I'm just like, I don't know if this is it. Right? And I went on some soul searching. And what I came out of that with was I'm craving impact. I want my time to be worthwhile with the things I'm doing. And right now it's cool. I'm making great money. I'm able to help these companies make more money. I'm doing my job, but it's not life-changing.
Right.
Right? I could figure out a way to make a couple more thousands of dollars, but it's not giving me that I need that.
The drive.
Not like the drive, but like where it feels worthwhile for the level of energy I expend.
Right.
So the other thing I came out of it with was, so impact was 1, and 2, I need to work on things that honor the type of energy I put out. I cannot work on things that are not aligned for me because I'm so passionate.
Right. Yep.
So if I put myself in a space where either I'm limited in certain ways or I'm not able to do work that actually resonates with me, it's not good for me. Because I put out such a high level of energy that was part of what was guiding my thinking. I'm all or nothing when it comes to things that I set my mind to.
Yeah.
I put my everything into it. Like I pour.
Right.
So you can see how problematic that is when my whole entire self was caught up in a job before.
Yeah.
Destructive.
Yeah.
So coming out of that last one, I'm like, yo, I don't want to be at the job worried and concerned, and my days are just consumed with an unhealthy amount of stress where the best of me and what I have to offer, it's just like it's not nurtured well. So I need to work on things that's aligned with my energy. Me personally, honestly, I think this is true. From enough thinking, I have to work on things that are impactful. I have to.
Impactful on other people?
Yes. Like, where, for me, that's how I define it, like life-changing. I want to see that my effort was worth it because I care. That's why I put such a high level of energy into things. I care about what I do. I care about people.
Yeah.
Like, I care.
Yeah.
I just, like, that's how I'm built. I can't help it. So I've learned, like, in some of the ways of, like, how I was working before, like going about working in terms of the proving the self part. And then also now, after having done that job in the type of work. So, like, yeah, the money was good and I took the opportunity and the da-da-da-da-da. But then it just ended up being so soul-sucking in terms of the type of stress. Yeah. And then just being, like, out of my comfort zone and not in a way where I had the willingness to, like, fight it out. Because like I said, like, I like hard things. I don't mind hard things. I believe I could have figured it out. But I noticed, like, in my soul wise, there was just a part of me that like I was saying, like the integrity aspect of certain things, of still working out that the self-worth part of it, I think that was straining me.
Yeah.
Because it was a new idea.
Right.
Like, I literally just got it.
Right.
And then a couple months after, I'm working.
Right.
So just like how I was, I did the surgery and then got laid off and then going into rest and processing. I think as we go through transitions at times, we think it's just going to be transition, sharp, sharp turn here, left now, right? And then it's like,
right.
And then it's like, you're just your mind and your body and everything is there, and you made that turn and you're just going down the road with your GPS and everything is cool.
Right.
Like, in life, it's like we have these overlaps and we have stuff that we're processing, we're grieving, we're adjusting to. So there's like these overlaps.
Yeah.
So what I think was being in that new startup with that new revelation, I'm working it out as I'm in that job. Right. And then realizing even some of the reasons why I like went after this, and then the content of the work and it not really being aligned with me, and not having a source to pull from anymore, because it's a different source.
Yeah.
So I'm navigating a revelation that having myself wrapped up in this thing, like my entire self, and like all my decision-making process, it's to prop up a self-worth. It's to prop up I have to work for my self-worth. I have to work for my identity.
Yeah.
Right? So now that I know, like, that's wrong, right? I'm carrying this revelation with me. And I don't know a source to pull from. And I'm in this job now, and it's like, I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
People need things from me.
Yeah.
And what I used to use to fuel me, I don't have that anymore.
Wow.
So even, you know, when I'm faced with challenges and stuff, I didn't have that mental strength like I usually do to like attack a thing. That thing was just crushing me.
Oh, no.
It was crushing me.
Yeah.
I couldn't think.
Yeah. Jeez.
I couldn't think. So I was in a panic.
Yeah.
Because I was like, these people gonna find me out and they gonna fire me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not coming at it with the type of energy that it needs, because it's like a problem I need to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not
Right.
attacking it.
Right.
And I'm scared.
Mm.
So it's like both things are happening at the same time. So I got laid off and I was like, whew, thank you, Jesus.
Right.
I've never been so happy to be laid off. So I went on some deep thinking again. And that was the revelation I came out of it with. That impact. And I need to do things that are aligned to the type of energy I put out.
Yeah.
I put a high level of energy. I need to work on things that are aligned to me, because if I don't, it's not good for my health.
Right.
Like literally, it's not good for me. And I've experienced that through being sick, through pushing myself to unreasonable limits.
Yes.
Y'all don't want to know like the level of work I can work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about I can work 10 hours straight for, like, I can work.
Mm-hmm.
And I work on the computer. I used to code. I used to do all these charts and I can work on that stuff all day long.
Mm.
So that's the new revelation I'm coming out of it with. So out of my deep thinking, I decided I was just going to do a complete career shift. And in that time, I had another gap of about 7 months.
Okay.
I am living off my savings. I started school because I decided to become a financial advisor, and started school to work on the certification that I needed for certain things. So I'm in school and I'm living off my savings. I'm looking for a job, and mentally that was very challenging. When you've been looking for a job for months, it is not great for your mental. So it was mentally challenging with trying to find a job, positioning myself in a different way where I couldn't really capitalize a lot of my past experience. So what I learned was, it was like I'm starting from scratch. Scratch.
Yeah.
Because that mindset of work for my self-worth, I've been on that trend since I moved to this country.
Wow.
I've been on that trajectory for years.
Wow.
So.
And you moved here when you were 14.
14. So I've been on that trajectory for a long time. And coming into that conclusion of impact, that my life has to be about other people, because I want to help people.
Yeah.
And you'll hear people say this all the time. I want to help people. We have no idea what that means half the time. But I believe it deep in my heart.
Listen.
That's what I want to do.
I became a pharmacist because I want to help people. I became a teacher because I want to help people.
And then
I became a la la da 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 everybody because I want to help people. Okay, what does that mean?
And then you catch up with them in a couple years. It's like, so are you helping people? Probably not. You're probably doing things that you don't want to do.
That part of the girl. Listen.
And what I learned is, coming to that conclusion of that new revelation, I was literally starting over. Because I threw out the thing that has been my fuel, my sense of purpose, my sense of like defining myself, my sense of my place in this world. I threw it out when I said it was wrong. Right? And then it's just been unfolding itself since then. So
is this still 2022 or 2020? This is
2022, right? So I'm saying like the 2022. Sometimes as we're talking, I'm just like getting revelations in my head. I think sometimes we think even with transitions, like just like the example I gave, to make a sharp turn here, and you think it's like that other turn has just been back there. It's like all them turns you made, it's factoring into your journey. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just get over the fact that you just made a sharp turn. Sometimes it's a smooth turn around the corner, but sometimes that GPS is like, girl, turn here right now.
All right, it's so true. Right now. You're like, girl, that swerve, you swerving.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you still recovering from that turn.
Mercy,
right?
Jesus, can we just sit in that spot real quick?
Yeah.
Like recovering from the turn that you did not actually see coming at all.
Yeah.
And then being expected to keep going. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like you make the turn and then you stop to pause and go, what was that? Like life doesn't often even permit that.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like, turn here. And then you're driving, you're like, like you're in shock and you still have to keep going.
Yeah.
It is the most uncomfortable feeling. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're trying to figure life out, mm-hmm. right? So there's this like, sometimes you go days, weeks, months, sometimes years, just like, what is going on? And then out of nowhere, turn right. And you're like,
yeah.
Sometimes you forgot the GPS was on because you're thinking so hard,
right,
trying to figure it out,
right,
and then just random turn,
right.
Now you're like,
right.
You didn't have words for it most of the time.
Yeah,
it just happened.
Yeah. So I think what happened in 2022, that revelation from 2021 of like, I can't be living like that.
Yeah.
It started to really like hit the rubber, like hit the road, where I felt it, like living it out.
Yeah.
I really felt it.
Yeah.
Because like I was saying before, like you have those overlaps where like you make, at those pivotal points, you do the turn, you think it's clean. It's not clean. There's overlap.
Girl.
So you coming out of something else, you going to something else. And in that like critical turn, you have overlap of changes. So you're even still like you're processing old stuff, you're processing new stuff.
Girl.
And there's a lot in your mind. Some of it you're not even aware of.
I'm not bored, I'm tired.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to feel offended. I'm sleepy, but it's okay, girl.
Like, it's not clean, right? Like we're saying, like it's messy, right?
It is messy.
So coming into 2022 and really starting to see like what it actually means to abandon that definition of my identity.
Jeez.
I was like, yo, going forward in everything that I do, integrity is important to me.
That's good.
who I am is not defined by a job. It's about what I'm bringing, what I have to offer of value that is intrinsic to me. It's not tied to anything, right? I want to come in, I want to be impactful in whatever I do, right? So it's a whole perspective now that I'm bringing now into this new industry, and honestly, like the core of like me as I'm walking out life. And I was tested a couple of times from some of the companies that I was applying to, where as a financial advisor, you can go about it different ways. The type of advisor I align with, resonate with, is more so along of like the non-salesy, commission-based driven, the reputation that the financial services industry has been associated with, like from a negative standpoint of people who take advantage of people. And I don't believe all financial advisors, financial professionals are like that, but it is a negative reputation that this industry has, because when money is involved, right? Do we truly have people's best interests? Hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So I knew going in, I want to let that lead me to serve people, to act in their best interests. And I went in with that intention. So some of the companies that I spoke with, in terms of like how they're structured, they don't agree easily with where you can avoid certain conflicts of interest. Right. And we talk about the money and all this stuff, and it's like, oh, and then you need to do this and you do that, and you're gonna be making this much by then, and once you do this and do that. And I kept having to remind myself, I didn't come here for the money. I didn't come here for the money. I didn't come here for the money. So I want to say that you will be tested, right? You will be tested with whatever the transition is, certain changes that you need to make in your life, especially when you yourself set out to do them. Because this is one of the defining points of 2022 going into this new path was I chose it. I chose it. I didn't choose it out of, you leave school and then, it's great to have this degree and then you have this kind of job, and it's like all these like things that look good for us to do and to have and to be, that society tells us, and we do all those things, and then it's like, okay, what else?
Oh, right. Exactly.
Right? That was the first time I decided to choose something.
Yeah.
Not because it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And of course, like, we got to navigate and figure these things out in terms of like, you leave school, you need to find a job. I had student loans. You know what I'm saying? I needed to hit the road. Okay. So how my life was up to this point, I don't have no regrets about anything and how it panned out.
Yeah.
It's seeing these things, right? As I come into more of who am I? And living that out, living me out.
Yeah.
So in choosing to go in a different direction of something that was more aligned, more true, right? It was something I chose. And as you make decisions, when you get into the going of it, you're going to be tested. It's gonna life is gonna continue to ask you the question, you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? Is this what you really want? Are you sure you want to do this? So right away in those months going up into, looking for that first company, the questions they were coming. And I heard him. And I had to keep reinforcing to myself, I'm not here for the money. I'm here for impact. I'm not here for the money. If it was about the money, I would keep making money.
Right.
Because I'm broke right now. And I like to have money. So I'm not here for the money. I'm not here for the money. I'm not here for the money. So I ended up finding a job and been at that company for the past 3 years. And it's been a good challenge for me, in starting from the bottom again, in working my way up, learning the ropes, all the things. Really learning that I need to do the work. And that's been one of the jarring things for me of living life from a place where I start to ask the question of really, who am I? Right? In doing the work to figure that out, right? It's very sobering. So in parallel to work, a lifelong conversation I've been having with myself has been with sexuality, with gender. That's been a lifelong conversation. And to paint some background, I've never felt comfortable in a dress. I don't feel comfortable in skirts. Growing up, I enjoyed being outside, playing, being active, being dirty. I love cars. I love bicycles. I love anything with wheels, honestly. I'm competitive. So naturally, I get along with the boys. I wasn't naturally inclined to like feminine things. And even in my personality, I'm not that way. And that created a challenge for me to know how to express myself. So in my processing of that, the way I dress has been a way for me to have a sense of self in my dress, it has encapsulated those aspects of me that I just described, of the more masculine attributes that I noticed about myself. Mm-hmm. And then looking out into the world and seeing women, and that being a foreign thing to me. What I notice about myself and that I actually like about myself, those things, I channeled them into how I dress, because that was the most natural way it felt for me to dress. Mm. That's what made me feel like myself. Mm-hmm. And like work, it became one of those things that it's me holding up a certain kind of image so that I can have my place, know who I am, know how to move through the world. Hmm. It's how I've made sense of myself. And through the years, I've wrestled with the who am I, in terms of feeling out of place as myself, having a way to channel that, and then in some ways feeling that it's not quite that. But it's something I work with, because at least this is something I know, right? But still sensing that it's me, but it's not quite me. Right? And I spent a lot of thinking, a lot of ruminating of that feeling different, and truly not being able to figure out how to express myself. Mm-hmm. Where whether it's to work, whether it's through how I chose to present myself, just coming up with something missing. And being preoccupied with all the work to project an idea, to taste a sense of being known, being accepted, really, because that's been a major driver for me. I would say, like, the number one driver is to be accepted. To be accepted, you know? I remember I had an accident on the playground. I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10, in those ranges. This girl pushed me down on the playground, busted my head open. Yeah. And like I had to get like stitches and everything, so they had to cut a part of my hair out to do it. And then I told them just like cut the whole thing just to like make it even, because it's just like this big old hole in like, and kids, and kids. So I already knew, like, I'm just mentally preparing myself to go to school because kids are vicious. And I remember when I was looking at myself in the mirror, like, I really liked the look. Like, secretly really liked it. At the time, I was already processing, like, myself, my body. I remember when I got boobs that day, like, it crushed me, it devastated me. Because I used to run around with my shirt off all the time, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever just to be shirtless. Like, men, I'm so jealous.
We went to run wild and free out here too.
Because I'm not into that nudist life. Yeah, I'm not comfortable like that, where I'm just out here shirtless these days. But I thought it was like the most freeing thing ever. I've never felt so free in my life, running around shirtless with the boys. And when I got boobs, it crushed me. It was just like, it was almost like, you're a woman. It's like, it just like burst my bubble forever. So I remember, so it's like some of those things happening in those years, in that time, processing my body.
Can you slow down just a little bit?
Sure.
I'm like trying to piece together, having had this accident that ended up giving you I don't know if the word was confidence, like a confidence about yourself, just because of like how you looked and you're liking it, and then free to start developing.
Yeah.
Not that soon after, like it's coming after this. Were you keeping your hair cut short from that point forward already?
No, it had to grow back.
You let it go. Okay.
So I got like a moment with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
But it was like, now it's like a file.
Yeah.
It's in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm every woman, and you're like, dog.
Yeah. So all those things were happening in that time.
Yeah.
So I remember looking in the mirror and I was like, loved it. Mm-hmm. And it's just like this secret. I'm like, this is great. Like, I love it. And I went to school, and this boy, he made fun of me. And he called me man head and woman body. And he sang it.
Wait, when you developed?
No.
Or when you got the hair?
The hair.
What the?
And it put something in me that there was something wrong with me. And I never forgot it. It bothered me so much after that time. It bothered me. It bothered me.
How is someone going to expect a kid to process someone labeling you two separate genders based off of different parts of yourself.
He was a kid. Kids don't know. They just...
Well, I know he doesn't know, but like, how... Yeah. Where does someone even begin? Especially, I mean, we grew up in the 90s, mind you. So these weren't conversations that anybody was really having in Jamaica or in the U.S. with their parents or with any adult in a room. Yeah. So to be like, that's something... Listen, I would have taken that to my room and just been like, I gotta sit with this. And I don't know who... I dare not tell nobody that I'm trying to process this even. Yeah. It wouldn't even be a thought in my mind to try. Yeah. Because there's a whole other trajectory that I'm thinking of if I bring this up to an adult in the room.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine.
Yeah. It was like a really tough thing to wrap my mind around and process through, of like this question of like, who am I? And just feeling like after that point forward, like, just like there's a thought deep down, like there's something wrong with me. And how that manifested itself was just condemnation toward myself. Just hating myself. And, you know, my dad's side of the family, my dad's a pastor. So I grew up, you know, with my grandparents at one point, and that had a pretty significant impact on me from a religious sense and spiritual sense. So I was aware of what the word, honestly, it's not even a word. I got that sense from culture, Jamaican culture. I born and raised, grew up in Jamaica until I was 14. So in that pivotal time, like, I'm aware of like what culture says about that. Mm-hmm. Right. I honestly don't think it was like from the word. I don't think I learned that until like moving here to the States, and like, you continue to hear through culture. Oh, what the Bible says, da 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 da, right? But back then, living in Jamaica, it was from culture that I could pick up these things already, where I'm not about to talk to nobody about the stuff I was processing. I'm not who I'm going to talk to.
Oh, right.
So I kept a lot of these things to myself. Mm-hmm. So I developed a hatred for myself. Jeez. And a perspective in my mind of this wrestle of my life being so painful, of asking God to change me. Because I'm like, yo, why is my life so hard? Like, it has created such a tremendous struggle for me. Like, the question of identity. And I think that's what the transition in the recent 4 years, they've like shook up. That's what that pandemic shook up for me. Because besides that, I don't know at what point I would have realized some of these things. I have no idea. Yeah. Because I was just going. And, the things that are sustaining us, oh my goodness, I hope we discover them. I hope we discover them. Because what I've learned is that through these very limited ways of like trying to matter in this world, it's so limited. It's like I'm grasping at straws to define something that is so big. Who are we? That in the job, the relationship, the whatever that we have been given, that we have been taught, and we just create these selves, and it's like it's so limiting.
Yeah.
So I felt this stress, this internal stress all the time, that I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure myself out. And some of these things that were feeding me in terms of like the identity, relationships came with that. You know, how, you know, I'm attractive, I'm good looking. How desirable and attractable, how desirable and attractive I was to women, and the effect that my aesthetic gives. I like that because it makes me feel wanted, desirable. A very core thing that we all need, right? But it's like us finding our way in all the different things of how we live to fulfill these needs of feeling accepted, which is such a core need. As a child, it's such a core need. So in the feedback I would get, whether it's from like work, whether it's from, you know, how people find me attractive, whether it's from, you know, girls I would pursue and who I could get, all those things would feed and prop this idea of worth.
Jesus.
And that all came to a head, honestly, around that time with the unfolding of work and those things. And in a relationship that my partner at the time, who I moved to California to live with, and the unfolding of myself through that. And the unraveling of all that was frail underneath, of truly, I'm good, of truly not knowing who I am. Or truly, in some ways, not knowing what I have to offer. Because my worth was tied up in other things. that when it mattered that you love someone, and it's like, you're a hot mess. You're a hot mess. All your stuff is coming out. Like with that job. It crushed me. It crushed me. Couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle love. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. And so that too came to a head with all its ebbs and flows. Then when it did come to a head, that same theme of integrity, of ways that I showed up out of fear, because I only know how to be and relate in certain ways that make me feel okay, that make me feel safe, just in this little box. Because I don't know how to be without all these things that has been put on me. Didn't know how to be. And I wasn't as transparent in certain ways that I needed to be. I wasn't able to give her certain things that she needed. And to see myself fail in such a way that it was almost like I couldn't stop it. It had such a profound effect on me, because once that came to a head, I didn't know what to do. Work was already out of my hands in terms of like all the things that I've held on to hold this image of myself, pieces that I've grabbed and held onto through the years and put it together with tape and put this part together and put that. It was like myself has been crumbling down. I could sense that I was falling apart. And I was afraid. I didn't want to find out who I am.
Jesus.
Some of the ugliness that I saw come up from being in that relationship of myself, I didn't really want to look those things in the face. That's me. That thought from that boy, and just been living with this thing in my mind if there's something wrong with me. And then starting to see the more vulnerable parts of myself, and they're ugly. Who is gonna love me? I don't even love me. I believe there are things about me that are lovable. I believe I am lovable. But in those core parts of me, I was like, yo, I can't face that. I don't know what to do with this stuff. And I had no choice but to face it. That and all other myriads of things that just scared me.
So there was a myriad of things.
Yeah. There's a myriad of things that I didn't want to look at. And it all came to a head. And that was basically the last straw of this image of who I've known myself to be come crashing down.
When was this?
This was last year, November 2023. And it came like a punch in the face. Came like a punch in the face. And I decided I couldn't run no more. Couldn't run from myself anymore. And the themes of identity, integrity, running, those are themes that I've noticed in my life. The need to prove myself through work, through how I've presented myself. It's been work. So running in that sense, like the pace that I've been running at to prove myself, this is who I am to the world. It's been exhausting. And I couldn't run anymore. Couldn't run anymore. I didn't have the energy to run anymore. It just all came crashing down.
Wow. 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 That, y'all, that is the one word, if anything else, that was coming to mind when I was having this conversation with Jaunell in real time. Because, man, you don't hear stories like this often. There are stories like this out there. But to be this raw, this vulnerable, this honest, not common. So I am so proud of her for sharing this story on my show and with all of you, because she's literally right in the middle of this experience, and she still has so many questions herself, trying to navigate, and we navigate those things together. And so with that being said, seeing that she and I are constantly having conversations about where we're at, I'm sure that her episode probably brought up some thoughts, some questions that you might be having as well. And so I highly encourage you to share in the comments in the YouTube video and or on the streaming platform that you're listening to this on. You can also share it on any clips of this episode that you see on my socials at Candace Olushala or at First Paso, because there's a lot to unpack. And I want us as a community, as First Pasitos, to come together and really have this conversation. This conversation, that conversation, all these conversations combined. We need to be talking. Okay. So I encourage you also to come back next week so you can hear part 2 of the rest of Jaunell's story. With that being said, take care, stay safe, God bless, and besitos. Bye.